Good evening and welcome to the channel. Tonight we are not just talking about missiles and bombs and oil tankers on fire. Tonight we are talking about something far more consequential, something that will affect every person watching this video, every person on Earth who buys groceries, pays rent, holds a job, has a savings account, or worries about their future. Tonight we are talking about the moment that historians may one day identify as the day the United States of America began losing its most powerful economic weapon, its control over the global financial system, its ownership of the world's reserve currency, the petrodollar. Because on March 14th, 2026, day 15 of the U.S. and Israel's war on Iran, a senior Iranian official told CNN something that has sent shockwaves through every financial capital in the world. Iran is considering allowing oil tankers to pass through the Strait of Hormuz again, but there is a condition, and that condition is not military. It is not diplomatic, it is financial. The cargo, the oil, must be traded in Chinese yuan, not US dollars. Chinese yuan. And if you understand what the petrodollar system is, what it means, how it was built, and what it has given the United States for the past 52 years, then you understand why that single sentence from a single Iranian official is, as one analyst put it this week, the most dangerous shot fired in this entire war. And it was not fired from a missile launcher. To understand why this matters so much, we have to go back to 1971. On August 15th of that year, American President Richard Nixon stood before the cameras and shocked the world. He announced that the United States was ending the dollar's convertibility to gold. This was called the Nixon shock. In one announcement, Nixon ended the Bretton Woods system that had governed global finance since 1944, a system under which the dollar was pegged to gold at $35 per ounce, and every other major currency was pegged to the dollar. With that system gone, the dollar was now a fiat currency, backed by nothing except the promise of the United States government. And the immediate question the world asked was this: if the dollar is not backed by gold, why should anyone hold it? Why should the world's reserve currency be a piece of paper backed by a government that had just admitted it could not honor its gold commitments? The United States needed a new reason for the world to need dollars. And Henry Kissinger, Nixon's Secretary of State, found that reason in the most valuable commodity on the planet: oil. In 1973, the Yom Kippur War broke out. Arab oil-producing nations, furious at American support for Israel, imposed an oil embargo. The price of a barrel of oil quadrupled in months, from $3 to nearly $12. The world panicked. And in that panic, Kissinger saw his opportunity. In a series of secret meetings with the Saudi royal family, a deal was struck. America would provide military protection for Saudi Arabia's oil fields. America would sell Saudi Arabia weapons. America would guarantee the security of the Saudi royal family. And in return, Saudi Arabia would do one thing. It would price all of its oil exclusively in US dollars. No other currency, only dollars. And Saudi Arabia would take the surplus dollars it earned from oil sales and recycle them back into the American economy by purchasing US Treasury bonds. By 1975, every single OPEC member had joined this arrangement. The petrodollar system was complete. And from that moment forward, the world's reserve currency was backed not by gold, but by black gold, by oil, by the requirement that every country on Earth that needed to buy oil first needed to buy US dollars. That structural global demand for dollars gave the United States something no other country in history has ever had: the ability to print money, run trade deficits, fund its military, impose sanctions, and dominate global finance without facing the consequences that any other country would face for the same behavior. Because the world had no choice but to hold dollars. And the world had no choice but to hold dollars because the world had no choice but to buy oil. That 52-year system is what Iran is now directly targeting, not with a missile, with a currency condition on a shipping lane. Think about what the Yuan for Hormuz proposal actually means in practice. The Strait of Hormuz carries approximately 20 million barrels of oil per day. It carries 20% of the world's entire oil supply and 20% of the world's liquefied natural gas trade. Every country in Asia, every country in Europe, every developing economy that buys oil from the Persian Gulf buys it in dollars. That means those countries must hold dollars. That means they must buy dollars on foreign exchange markets. That means there is constant global structural demand for the US dollar that flows directly from the requirement to pay for Gulf oil in dollars. If even a portion of that trade shifts to Yuan, the structural demand for dollars falls. Countries need to hold fewer dollars. They need to hold more yuan instead. The dollar's position as the world's reserve currency weakens. And when the dollar weakens as a reserve currency, the United States loses one of the foundational pillars of its global economic power: the ability to sanction any country by cutting it off from the dollar system. The ability to borrow at low interest rates because the world must buy U.S. Treasury bonds. The ability to run trade deficits indefinitely because foreigners must accept dollars in payment. All of that erodes the moment oil is no longer exclusively a dollar commodity. And here is the truly alarming part of what Iran has done. It is not doing this alone. China has been working toward this moment for years. In 2018, China launched the Shanghai International Energy Exchange, a platform that allows oil futures contracts to be traded in yuan. China has struck bilateral deals with Russia to trade energy in local currencies. China became a full member of the mBridge project, a platform of central bank digital currencies that enables instant international payments that completely bypass the dollar system entirely. Saudi Arabia, America's original petrodollar partner, the country that signed that deal with Henry Kissinger in 1974, has been in active discussions with China about accepting yuan for oil sales. As of early 2026, those discussions had not produced a formal agreement. But Iran's proposal changes the calculus entirely because Iran controls the Strait of Hormuz right now. Iran has the leverage. Iran has effectively shut down 20% of the world's oil supply. And Iran is saying if you want your oil to move again, you need to use China's currency, not America's. What does this mean in the real world right now? It means that while the United States is spending over $11 billion a week bombing Iran into rubble, while 13 American soldiers have already died, while 140 have been wounded, while Brent crude oil sits above $100 per barrel, and American gas prices have risen 23% in 2 weeks, Iran is not just fighting a military war. Iran is fighting a financial war. And in the financial war, Iran is not alone. China is the silent partner. China has received 11.7 million barrels of Iranian crude oil through the Strait of Hormuz since the war began on February 28th. All destined for Chinese refineries. Iran is still loading approximately 1.5 million barrels of oil per day, with China receiving around 1.2 million barrels daily. The Strait of Hormuz, that is closed to American tankers and European tankers and Japanese tankers and South Korean tankers, is apparently open for Chinese-bound oil. Not fully, not freely, but meaningfully. The war that is destroying global oil markets is actively enriching China's energy security reserves at discount prices. China is buying Iranian oil at rates far below the global market price because Iran needs the revenue and has no other buyer who can safely take delivery. China spent nothing on this war. China fired no missiles, China lost no soldiers, and China is receiving millions of barrels of discounted oil while simultaneously positioning its currency as the replacement for the dollar in the world's most important energy choke point. This is the strategic trap that the United States has walked into, and it is becoming clearer with every passing day. The United States and Israel launched Operation Epic Fury on February 28th with a set of stated objectives: destroy Iran's nuclear program, destroy its missile capabilities, eliminate its supreme leader, create conditions for regime change. 15 days later, Iran's nuclear program has been damaged but not destroyed. Iran still has ballistic missiles. Iran has a new supreme leader. And Iran has weaponized its control of the Strait of Hormuz in a way that is actively dismantling the financial architecture of American global power. The war that was supposed to weaken Iran has given Iran an opportunity to do something it could never have done through military force alone: challenge the petrodollar. The numbers speak for themselves. Since the war began on February 28th, Brent crude has risen from approximately $70 per barrel to over $100 per barrel, an increase of more than 40%. U.S. crude oil has surged 47%. American gas prices have risen 23% in 2 weeks. Diesel prices have risen from $3.71 per gallon to $4.85 per gallon. The Federal Reserve, which had been on track to cut interest rates, is now frozen because the oil price surge threatens to reignite inflation. The S&P 500 is down more than 3% for the year and has fallen for 3 consecutive weeks. Goldman Sachs has warned that if the Strait of Hormuz remains closed for weeks, gasoline in the United States could reach historically high levels and inflation will become a permanent problem. European natural gas prices nearly doubled after Iranian drones attacked Qatari gas facilities. The International Energy Agency has said this is the largest oil supply disruption in the history of the global market. And through all of this, China is accumulating discounted oil reserves and positioning the yuan as the price of reopening the world's most critical energy choke point. Now, let us be precise about what Iran's proposal actually is and what it is not. A senior Iranian official told CNN on March 14th that Tehran is considering allowing a limited number of oil tankers to pass through the Strait of Hormuz, provided the cargo is traded in Chinese yuan. This is a proposal. It is not yet a formal policy. It has not been officially confirmed by the Iranian government. And Chinese analysts, writing in South China Morning Post, have urged caution, noting that the plan would face operational feasibility challenges, security risks, and could strain China-U.S. relations. China does not officially want to be seen as the direct beneficiary of a war between the United States and Iran. Beijing's public position is neutral. But the private reality is that no country on earth benefits more from this war than China, and no country has done more to position itself to capitalize on exactly this kind of scenario. China holds the Shanghai Petroleum and Gas Exchange. China has the CIAPS payment system that routes international payments in yuan. China has the M-Bridge central bank digital currency platform. China has bilateral energy trade agreements with Russia, Iran, and is in active discussions with Saudi Arabia. The infrastructure for a yuan-denominated oil market exists. What it has lacked is a triggering event powerful enough to force the world to use it. And Iran has just provided that triggering event. What happens to the dollar if this proceeds? The Atlantic Council, which is one of America's most serious foreign policy research institutions, has noted that the dollar's share of global foreign exchange reserves has fallen from 72% in 2000 to approximately 58% by the end of 2024. That is a 14 percentage point decline over 25 years without any major triggering event. The Iran war is a major triggering event. If countries that buy Gulf oil are forced to hold yuan to pay for passage through Hormuz, even temporarily, even partially, the trend toward de-dollarization accelerates from a gradual 25-year slide into a rapid structural shift. As Gal Luft, co-director of the Institute for Analysis of Global Security, told the Wall Street Journal years ago in a warning that now sounds prophetic, The oil market, and by extension, the entire global commodities market, is the insurance policy of the status of the dollar as reserve currency. If that block is taken out of the wall will begin to collapse. Iran is reaching for that block right now. And consider the irony of what is happening. The petrodollar system was born in 1974 in response to the Yom Kippur War and the Arab oil embargo that followed it. It was Henry Kissinger's solution to the problem of how to maintain American financial dominance after the gold standard ended. It was built on a U.S.-Saudi security guarantee. America protects Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia sells oil in dollars. That deal has held for 52 years. And now, in 2026, the United States has launched a war in the Middle East in partnership with Israel, the exact country whose support during the Yom Kippur War triggered the original oil crisis. And that war has created the exact conditions that threatened to end the petrodollar system that the original oil crisis produced. The historical irony is almost too perfect to believe. In trying to project strength and destroy Iran's nuclear program, the United States has inadvertently handed Iran the leverage it needed to challenge the very financial system that makes American power possible. There is one more dimension of this story that has not received enough attention, and it is the Russia-China-Iran axis. Russia is providing Iran with tactical drone advice and intelligence on U.S. troop locations. Russia's oil is already traded in yuan and rubles under Western sanctions. China is buying Iranian oil at discount. China is buying Russian oil at discount. Both Russia and Iran are actively working to route their energy trade through yuan rather than dollar systems. The mBridge platform connects central banks in China, Hong Kong, UAE, Thailand, and Saudi Arabia. The BRICS bloc expanded in 2024 to include Saudi Arabia, Iran, the UAE, Ethiopia, and Egypt. The infrastructure of a parallel non-dollar financial system is not a theoretical future possibility. It is being assembled right now in real time, accelerated by every day that the Strait of Hormuz remains closed, and every day that the war makes the petrodollar system look fragile. Trump's response to all of this has been to bomb Iran's Karg Island, which handles 90% of Iran's oil exports, and to threaten to destroy Karg's oil infrastructure if Iran does not reopen Hormuz. But here is the strategic problem with that approach. If Trump destroys Karg Island's oil facilities, Iran's oil exports stop entirely. But the Strait of Hormuz still belongs to Iran. Iran can still block every other country's oil from passing through it. Destroying Karg does not open Hormuz. It just makes Iran angrier and gives Iran less to lose. A country with no oil revenue and a destroyed export infrastructure has nothing left to protect and nothing left to negotiate with. It has only the Strait of Hormuz and the willingness to use it. Meanwhile, the world would still need Yuan to buy the oil that does flow through Hormuz from other Gulf producers. The Yuan condition does not require Iranian oil to be valuable. It requires Hormuz to be usable, and Hormuz is usable only on Iran's terms right now. Trump is holding Karg hostage to reopen a strait that Iran controls. Iran is holding Hormuz hostage to end a war that Trump started. And China is sitting in Beijing watching both of them, collecting discounted oil, and waiting for the yuan to take one more step toward becoming the world's reserve energy currency. The world is watching the birth of something new and the death of something old at the same time. What is being born is a world where oil can be traded in currencies other than the dollar at the world's most important energy choke point. What is dying slowly, possibly irreversibly, is the 52-year architecture of American financial dominance that was built on the promise that anyone who wants oil must first buy dollars. The missiles and the bombs are the visible war. The yuan condition is the invisible war. And it is the invisible war that will determine what kind of world we live in for the next 50 years. Before we go, 3 questions for tonight. Question A. Iran has proposed opening the Strait of Hormuz only for oil traded in Chinese yuan, directly challenging the petrodollar system that has underpinned American financial dominance since 1974. If even 10% of global oil trade shifts from dollars to yuan as a result of this war, do you think the United States will ever recover its financial dominance? Or has Iran just fired the shot that begins the end of the American economic empire? Question B. China has received nearly 12 million barrels of Iranian oil since the war began, is accumulating discounted reserves while the rest of the world pays over $100 per barrel, and has positioned its yuan payment infrastructure to capitalize on Iran's Hormuz yuan condition. China fired no missiles, lost no soldiers, and spent no money on this war. Do you think this was planned coordination between China and Iran from the beginning, or is Beijing simply the world's most skilled opportunist? And question C. The petrodollar system was born in 1974 from a secret deal between Henry Kissinger and Saudi Arabia made possible by the Yom Kippur War. Now, in 2026, a new war involving Israel in the Middle East may be ending that exact system. Do you see the historical parallel, and does it change how you think about who actually benefits from wars in the Middle East? Drop your answers in the comments. Share this video because what Iran just proposed in the Strait of Hormuz is not just a Middle East story. It is a story about the money in your wallet, the price of everything you buy, and the world your children will inherit. Subscribe if you are not already. Stay informed, and I will see you on the next one.